Her Bak Egyptian Initiate. The story of Her Bak is situated between the 20th and 21st dynasties in the framework of the temples of Mut and of Ammon, now known as Karnak, on the east bank of the Nile in front of the Theban mountain that dominates the Valley of the Kings. Part 1. The question. There is silence at the uncertain moment when dawn ends night. The teaching Her Bak had received in the peristyle was in the past. What promised light was to shine. The master had said, an answer is profitable in proportion to the intensity of the quest. A problem clearly envisaged, a point succinctly made. Hold the elements of the solution in themselves. We must impose a test before introducing you among the disciples. If we authorize one question, to what question do you attach first importance? Consider the grounds of your choice attentively and write them in your memory. You will set them out in exact terms when you are called. Her Bak bowed. He re-examined the themes of his impassioned research, looked deeply into their bases, strove to throw out the superfluous and uncover the essential. Now he waited. Dawn whitened the ground. The first golden rays drew a silhouette on the stone. A messenger's. Her Bak followed him without fear, conscious of having given the fullness of what was possible to him. The candidate was led into the hypostyle, where bright light fought with shadow. Guards had been posted at the approaches. He walked towards a voice that called him from the eastern side, where at the far end of the colonnade 3 men were seated on the master's right. The master of mysticism, the master of measures, the master of symbology. Her Bak was struck with the majesty of this group. Nothing in their costume proclaimed it, but clearly they were the true pillars of the temple. To what new world had he been transported? Only a few steps separated him from the peristyle, but its gossip and quarrelling were already far away. If I am not received here, may I at least live here as a humble servant of its majesty. With this aspiration, Her Bak prostrated himself and, in his ardour, forgot all else, even the test to which he must now submit. At the master's voice he rose. Approach, Her Bak. Now is the time to prove that endeavour equals your ambition. Have you framed your question? Master, may I put it in the order in which it evolved? I've got hold of one end of a clue, but I don't know where it will take me. My son, this isn't the place for unnecessary words. Announce your problem as you conceive it. The novice replied, This is the first question that comes from my heart. Why am I on this earth? But discussing it with myself, I haven't found it very astute. Do I know what I am? Do I know what earth is? Is it that which is neither heaven nor the Duat? It is written, all that is in heaven, on earth, and in the Duat. Earth is under heaven and under my feet. Therefore I am on earth and under heaven. What is man doing on earth? He is born, lives, and dies. Where was he before he was born? In his father and his mother. Whence came the first father? When man dies, he goes back into earth. When he ends, earth goes on. Will it exist always? Earth changes with the seasons. I have been told that it is the sun, moon, and Sirius that make the seasons, so earthly existence depends upon them. Do I depend on them, since I live on earth? Or what do sun, moon, on what do sun, moon, and Sirius depend? Are they stronger than all heaven? I have been told of stars even greater than these, which is the most powerful. But still my question eludes me. If I know the answer, I shall know who rules the world. Is it true what I say? If Earth changes, why not sun, moon, and Sirius? Mustn't what changes die? If so, death is stronger than all else. Is death fundamental? Death ends something. What thing? A life? This brings me back to the same point. What is the object of existence? It can't be death. There must be other purposes, or the world is horror and madness. Of course, this isn't my definitive question. I must first answer another. Did I choose my goal, or was it imposed on me? Is there a will that compels mine? Is there a law that governs me as sun, moon, and Sirius are governed? I've heard about laws of nature. If they rule me, I have no liberty, no goal. What then do we look for? What purpose does the temple serve? One thing is certain. I can deserve or forfeit admittance, so I have a measure of liberty. The getting of wisdom could be my aim. Is it absurd? It would be if there were no real knowledge in the temple. I haven't the right, because I know nothing, to conclude that the sages have lied, yet since they say I can accept or refuse the way of truth, this is liberty. How do I get it? Is it above the law of nature? Stronger than they? What in nature is less free than I? I don't know if the animal has liberty, certainly less than mine. I don't believe an animal can conquer the laws of nature. The plant can't, nor the stone. Here's a difference between me and them. Therefore, if I'm to know whence my liberty comes, I must ask, what is man? If man is the complete being on earth, I ought, knowing this, to be able to know all else. But I'm a man and I don't know myself. I don't know who or what is in me. The doctor who teaches in the peristyle doesn't explain where the first man comes from, nor the purpose of life, nor the meaning of death. Masters, doubts of this sort brought me up short before I ever watched a funeral. Now I've seen death, and I ask myself, if death is the final end, what use is knowledge? The singer was right. Better enjoy life without care. In which case, temple and wisdom are absurdities. Funeral rites are absurdities. Yes, that's what I've thought. But I also told myself it would be another absurdity to reach this conclusion without proofs. Do you yourself believe, Her Bak, that death is a final end? Asked the master of mysticism. My heart refuses it, but I must find the question I'm to put without asking what I believe. The masters received this with satisfaction, and Her Bak resumed. The funeral rites affected me, through my love for Nadja. I understood what separation means. Before death, he was like ourselves. He breathed the same air, saw the same things. Now his eyes see nothing, his nostrils breathe nothing. Is there some part of him that still sees? If not, it's total annihilation. If so, does he see what we don't? In which case, are our eyes dead to the world we don't see? To that world we don't see. If it was so, would our life and his only be separated by a difference? Where is his life, his personal life? Is what he learnt dead with him? A master carpenter said to me, death is change. If the body is mummified, it can change no longer. In what does the change lie? People talk of the ba and ka that can, as they say, return. What are they? Where? Their body is dead. How can they live if they have no body to cat with? And here is another question. What is it to be alive? But there's too much I don't know. I don't know if this is the fundamental question. The masters looked at each other, smiling. He is a true seeker, the sage said. He has dared to speak. Let us help him with his question. They assented. To frame a question, said the mystic. First go to the heart of the problem. Everyone is moved by an urge that governs his life. What urge is yours? To learn what I must know if my life is to reach its goal. Then begin by seeking the goal. How am I to do this? The geometer said, every axiom, every truth must be susceptible of geometrical expression, for every phenomenon is the result of movements and rhythms that give it form and character by the law of number. Make your own life, your phenomenal self, the centre of inquiry if you wish to know its goal. Where does it come from? Where is it going? It comes from my birth. Lines of force and numbers determined your birth. Your life demonstrates the harmonious characteristics that lead you to a goal. That gives the field in which you have to search. Smiling at Her Bak's perplexity, the sage said, start from some point you know. And in what does life end? In death, and perhaps something I don't know about. You can't know your goal unless you know your ending, but your real aim will guide you to knowledge. For lines of force in a man, let us say his disposition, determine his real aim, so that he is fatally directed by true facts of his aim and ending. Actually, my aim is to know how I really end. The symbolist replied, then establish the relationship between this, your own disposition, and that of other existences. The minerals is limited by its inertia. It waits and suffers change imposed on its passivity. The vegetables, expressed in various movements, limited by its being rooted in the ground, consists of finding conditions favourable to breathing, nourishment and fertilisation. The animals is to seek food, shelter and the opportunity of copulation. These tendencies reveal each individual's aim. In the mineral inertia, the slow rate of change make its aim all but imperceptible. Vegetables is the production of seed. The animals is to continue the species and satisfy its instincts. Do the disposition and aim of animal nature fulfill your aspirations? They will never satisfy me. Seek then, in this difference, the difference between your own real ending and theirs. The measure in which your disposition and aim surpass theirs will indicate the quality of your own real aim and ending. The mystic questioned the candidate. Do you believe that life can go on after the body's death? My heart desires it. After what has been said, my heart believes it, but nothing proves it to me. What matter? Listen to your first convictions, even if they seem absurd to your reason. A sound precept, agreed the sage, in spite of its dangers. In effect, if there exists a body of law that binds all forms of life together, this establishes between them sensorially imperceptible relations which, since they are outside the range of reasonable logic, may well be called absurd until experience shows that concrete fact can emerge from the abstract. To reject what seems absurd without discrimination is to reject the possibility of knowing the laws in question. Learn then to distinguish between the certainties of the heart, or faith and belief, or blind adherence to words. Such belief must be rejected, but faith is indispensable if you will enter into the divine knowing. Accept then, provisionally, your heart's certainty, then seek proof of its truth or falsehood. Where shall I look? Asked Her Bak. I don't know what death is. Proceed by elimination, said the geometer. Death is an undeniable fact, whereas life isn't a fact, but a sum of effects that derive from an abstract and incomprehensible cause. Begin then with the fact of death. If you consider death according to the look of it, how would you define it? As an ending, what seems to result in nothing. Your conclusion is inexact, Her Bak. There is tangible residue, the corpse. As to the process that changed a body into a corpse, you can envisage two possibilities. Either there remains a body whose vital activity has simply been annihilated, in which case there has been subtraction, or over and above the cadaver, there remains something that came out of it, in which case you have division. Well, then, death is subtraction of life. Death is subtraction if life has definitely ceased. If it has simply been annihilated, or it is division if something has been separated from the body. Having reflected, Her Bak submitted his conclusion. Look for what left the body. Is that what I am supposed to do? To find it, answered the symbolist, observe what brings about death in nature, or how it shows itself. What brings it about is the cessation or the accomplishment of the reason for living, in which case death shows what the reason for living was. If the cause of death is accident, cessation of the reason for living may permit or provoke it. Nature exhibits the connection between death and aim. The flower dies at the birth of the seed, corn when the grain ripens. Certain male insects die in copulation. In all animals, decrepitude begins with the exhaustion of the procreative function. Among men, you see the same law with a difference. There are men and women who, thanks to their intellectual gifts, are no longer enslaved by this function, with the result that their reason for living outlasts the merely animal aim, and for them death may have another meaning. How does death show itself? Her Bak replied with some hesitation, by the disappearance of movement and warmth. Correct. The first obvious effect is the ending of that incomprehensible drive that gave heart and body movement, after which the body is abandoned to destructive changes, showing that what left the body is what keeps it going. The mystic added, we call it the quickening soul. But whence comes the first activity? Asked Her Bak. The symbolist replied, basing himself on nature, from the incomprehensible moment when the seed awakens in the womb. How could the seed do without one? Nature scatters seed in profusion, and much is lost, finding no womb. The female who receives the seed conceives the germ and feeds it with her own substance. The mother withers when this function is exhausted, but there is one mother who brings forth and nourishes germs incessantly. Earth, nurse of all vegetables and other beings whose food they are. She is the mother of minerals. All bodies return to her bosom. An ironic light in his eye, the sage murmured, "True, but meanwhile the bodies have lived and Earth is not dead." Earth is the perpetual nursing mother, the symbolist agreed. Giving, she may be depleted, but she draws afresh on the resources of nature in order to transmit life. Only an overwhelming Sethian fire can stem her regenerative power. It is in this way that the red earth, the desert, arises. Tell me, Her Bak, do you know a mother who cannot die? How could it be possible? Mustn't all that is born suffer death? Then such a mother can neither be born nor have bodily form, for it is on the body that death exercises its power. And such a mother, nurse of life itself, must have the same nature as that which gives life and which we call soul. The sage offered a provisional conclusion. The problem of life is not yet fathomed, but the possibility of a mother who dies not brings you nearer a solution, for she reveals the meaning of death, which is no more than a passing of the creature into the belly of the great mother Nut, who brings about all changes. If death is a moment of change, said Her Bak, there must remain over and above the body something that goes on living. The sage corrected him, something that is life itself. Her Bak strove to remember every word. At last, he put his question. Then the fundamental problem is, what is life? What is life if it is other than a fleeting appearance, a ripening of a seed, a transit between birth and death? None of the masters spoke. Before we answer, the sage said at length, each of us will question you. For my part, I ask, why didn't you choose for your question the theme that has always troubled you? What is a netter? Her Bak replied without hesitation. I've passed my whole time asking it. I'm beginning to think it's the last thing to look for. The masters smiled. The sage approved. You can add that it's the thing it's useless to look for. If the netter isn't in you, you'll find it nowhere. If it is, it will disclose itself and you'll find it everywhere. Now let each master put his question. What is your innermost desire, Her Bak? Asked the mystic. To feel the life in me and in everything. Learn then to know the world in yourself. Never look for yourself in the world, for this would be to project your illusions. What do you wish to know, Her Bak? Said the geometer. The truest truth, even if it were to prove disagreeable? I wish only to know what is most true. Then seek it in number and geometrical function. They will give you facts that are inescapable, and no person or sentimental consideration can set them aside. What do you wish to do, Her Bak? Asked the symbolist. To give others what I get. To give, one must have. To teach, one must know the nature of those whom one is teaching, their symbol, that is to say. Study men and things through their symbolism. My son, said the sage, the three masters have let you taste the very essence of their subject. May it please them to add a definition of man. The mystic said, man is the tabernacle of the divine word. The geometer said, man is the measure of cosmos. The symbolist said, man is a living statue of the great world and some of its symbols. As for me, declared the sage, I owe you the reply to your question, what is life? I will give it tomorrow, on your entry to the inner temple. What will you give, Her Bak? Her Bak prostrated himself, my obedience and my faith. Rising, he added, that is only natural. But Master, if you teach me what life is, I will give you my life.